Right, we'll give people a few more minutes just to join, but for those that are here already, thanks for joining us. I think you probably mostly know the IAS anyway, but the plan for today is to talk you through the process for nominating fellows for the IAS Fellowship scheme. So what I want to do is, first of all, just check everyone's happy with recording this, just so we can make it available to others if needed. The aim is that we will just have a quick introduction of the IAS staff, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what we're trying to do in the IAS, which is where the fellowships fit into our aims, so that we can then talk about the fellowship scheme and how to nominate people. And hopefully in understanding our aims, you'll be able to put together stronger applications and so on. I will go through everything. Most information is on the IAS website, so I hope it's all clear for everyone to see anyway. But hopefully I'll just be able to give a little bit of detail to what's there already. And then finally, the most important thing is if you have any questions, that you have the chance to ask us, and make sure that before you leave the call today, you know how to go about approaching an application to nominate a fellow. So without further ado, you may or may not know, I'm Alex Easton, I'm the director of the IAS, and we have on the call here Nainika Mukherjee and Patrick Zuck, who are our co-directors for Social Science and Health and for Arts and Humanities. So the three of us are running the scheme this year. We'll be collating all the applications and scoring them and so on. So please, if you have any questions at any point, if you've got people you'd like to nominate, you maybe have some questions about that process or whatever, please do get in touch with one of us or with Linda Crow, the IAS manager, and we're all very happy to help. So just to set out, even if you've been involved in the IAS before, there's been lots of changes over the last year, and I think it's just worth resetting out what we in the IAS are trying to do, how we're trying to achieve it, and how the fellowship scheme fits within that. So the IAS is, to all intents and purposes, an ideas-based institute. We're interested in looking at the interdisciplinary work that's going on across the university, particularly across faculties, and helping those ideas grow bigger and quicker than they might without IAS input. We do that through a number of routes. We have several project schemes, development projects, small projects, and major projects, which support work and activities, bringing people together to discuss collaborative projects. But we also run a fellowship scheme, and the aim of the fellowship scheme is to bring 20 researchers over the course of 2 terms into Durham to collaborate with Durham academics. Obviously, they need to fit into our remit. So the aim of bringing people over is that they help individual staff or groups of staff also grow their ideas, add value to those ideas, maybe fill a gap that Durham can't fill on its own, bring expertise into Durham and help you develop your projects so that they can produce strong outputs, strong grant applications, whatever it may be that's suitable for you. So there are 3 ways in which we bring fellows into Durham. The first is that the major projects that we fund have fellowships attached to them. We've now decided the major projects and small projects for this round. They're on the website, and I'll maybe talk to them in a minute. But they each have a couple of fellows associated with them. The rest of the fellowships are available then through the open call. So this year we have 14 fellowships available in the open call. The projects may nominate more fellows. The second route is that people may apply directly. So there may be academics across the world who choose to apply. We've advertised this in various locations around the world. They may apply directly to us, and we would aim to put those people in touch with a Durham academic to do their work while they're here. But the third route, and the one that we'd be most keen to support because it obviously brings the greatest value to what we're trying to do as an IAS, is for staff to nominate fellows themselves. The idea here is that you may have a colleague, an international colleague, that you want to bring over for a period of 10 weeks to work with you on a particular project, build a collaboration, start a collaboration, develop something large scale, whatever it may be, from that fellow actually being embedded in Durham and working with you over the course of a term. So to do that, we need to ask you to put in an application, and we will obviously score the fellows on what you say. There are, the form is on the website, it's relatively brief. There are several key components to it that I just really want to highlight today. The first is, if you're nominating a colleague, all of the documents that we need in the IAS around that nomination need to be collated by you by the deadline date in June. So there's the nomination form itself. There are 2 academic references. There's a letter from the fellow nominated saying that they're willing to accept the position, and a CV as well. So there's several pieces of material, all of which need to be collated by you and sent to the IAS before the deadline. We have a relatively tight turnaround on the deadline. We're trying to turn lots of things around, so we need all the paperwork in place. If for some reason there's a delay, there's always a chance there might be a delay. We can't necessarily grant any extensions, but if you know that there is a problem, please let Linda Crow or one of us know, and we'll certainly see what we can do. We're not trying to stop good applications. We just need to make sure we meet our timescales. Why do we need a letter from them to confirm that they can take up the fellowship? These fellowships that are open at the moment are for arriving either in Michaelmas 2023 or in Epiphany term 2024. So they're a good 18 months to 2 years ahead of time. But we still need a letter from the fellow confirming that they would accept it if offered, because what we don't want in a very competitive scheme is obviously to decide that we want to support a fellow and then be in a period of negotiation about whether they can get research leave and whether they can actually arrive in Durham. So we actually need to make sure that all those conversations have taken place. The fellow has permission from their home institution to travel to Durham for a period of time. They have research leave or whatever it may be in place, and they therefore are happy that if we offer them, they will be able to accept. So that's absolutely key. In terms of the academic referees, we ask for 2 academic referees. And again, it's the responsibility of the academic nominating them to put these in place. But what's really important here is that these are not references from Durham staff. Okay, obviously we're bringing in people into Durham. We know there's therefore going to be a value to Durham. What we'd like, though, is to bring in really world-class people who bring something extra exciting, new, some leadership and so on. It would be great, therefore, to have external references that speak to the ability of those people. And again, on the website, there's some really handy guidance as to what is useful to include in those references, particularly around their indicator of esteem, so prizes they may have won, stage of their career, papers, high profile findings and so on. Or it may be that they've taken place in large interdisciplinary projects, they've shown leadership, whatever it may be. All these things are very helpful in a reference to help us evaluate their quality. The other things that we need are a little bit more straightforward. So I'll just take you through the form as it appears. Let me just share my screen with you. Right, so hopefully you can see the form to be completed by you as an academic nominator now in Durham. So obviously we need all the individual name and address and so on of the candidate. There is bits of information here, question 4, when that fellow would like to come, whether it be Michaelmas term 23 or Epiphany 24. It may be at this stage that you say either, that's absolutely fine. When we make the awards, we need to make sure that we have essentially 10 fellows in each term, which means that we need to keep a little eye on balance. If we have too many fellows in one term, then we'll make offers to fellows in the other term. If a fellow has the freedom to come to both, if you say both, then we can make that adjustment afterwards. If they're fixed that they can only come at one period of time, then put that, and that means that we will only consider them for that period of time. And again, it may seem slightly odd that we say, are they planning to come with a spouse or partner or children? That's not part of our decision-making process. So that information doesn't determine whether they're made an offer or not. But if we do make them an offer, one of the things they get is accommodation in college for the period they're in Durham. And that information just allows us to work with the colleges to find the appropriate accommodation. So whilst I'm on that note, let me just explain to you what the fellowship actually gives people when they come to Durham. We provide accommodation for them for 10 weeks in Durham, so essentially a Durham term. They have their travel to and from Durham paid for, so flights as needed. They will get accommodation during their 10 weeks in Durham in a Durham college, so the equivalent of a one-bedroom bedsit or room, something like that. And that in a catered college would include catering and so on for that fellow. If they bring family members, then they have to cover the cost of family members themselves. They also get £3,000 of an honorarium, just because we are aware, obviously, when people come for a fellowship, there are some additional expenses that they may incur and so on. So there's a small amount of money for them to do that as well. What we also don't provide, let me phrase it this way, what we don't provide normally is research, is teaching buyout for that fellow. So we're aware people who want to come for a fellowship will need to have a period of leave from their home institution. In most cases, the universities may have support for research sabbaticals and so on, and we would expect the fellow to use any support like that to take the time to come to Durham. However, we do have small amounts of money to cover teaching buyout if a sabbatical or other period of research leave is not available to them. So they might be in a university from the Global South or somewhere that has less financial support and ability to give sabbaticals to their colleagues. We absolutely will consider teaching buyout in those cases, but we cannot guarantee it. So what we ask in the form is, if they need teaching buyout, that they explain why they have no alternative and that they cost what that teaching buyout will be. And on the website, you'll see there is a maximum that we can provide. It's not a huge amount, so we're certainly not able to provide enormous costs, but we can support those fellows who have no other means of coming to Durham. Right, as well as a CV from the fellows, we need a little bit of information from you about what the fellow will do when they're here in Durham. So we need the fellows' area of research interest, notable achievements, so just a little summary of their CV in essence. Really, one of the criteria that we use is the profile of the research of the candidate. So they don't need to be a high-profile professor. They do need to be more than 5 years postdoc. But whatever stage of their career they're at, we would be looking for someone who is doing exceptionally well for that stage of their career. So if they are a senior professor in a university, we would expect to see real evidence of leadership in their field, high-profile work in their field, interdisciplinarity, major projects led by them, and so on. If they're 5 years postdoc, then we may expect to see some less of the leadership and so on, but we would still expect to see that they are performing exceptionally well considering the stage of career they're at. So this box here, box 8, is just a chance for you to summarize some of that information, point out to us what their achievements are. Equally, box 9, major publications, prizes and esteem factors. So again, what are the things that you can highlight from their CV that allow us to see the quality of the individual and their research? And then box 10, please provide details of how you envisage this person engaging with and contributing to the proposed research activity. What's really being asked for here is for you to describe what they're going to do. So when they come to Durham, what are you going to do with them? What's the purpose of their visit? Most people that you nominate are going to be coming to work with you on a specific piece of work, in which case, can you describe it? What is that project? How is it going to happen? What are the approaches you're taking? Why is it important? All of these things. But alongside that, how does this fellow add to it? So in essence, why is the fellow needed in Durham in order to achieve that piece of work, whatever it may be? So we all know we work in a virtual world. We can now collaborate with people at a distance, but there are benefits from having someone embedded in Durham working closely with you. And we just want you to say both what it is you're doing and how that person adds value to what it is that you're doing. That's another piece of the assessment that we make of all of our fellows is the project, the quality of the project that they're engaging in and the value they bring to that project. And then here at the end, lists of names and colleagues or departments with whom this fellow might engage if awarded an IAS Fellowship, and comment on the proposed relevance to the university strategy and the department strategies that are involved. So what we're really asking for here is two things. One, how do they fit not just with you, but with the wider university? Of course, we're bringing a fellow over to be part of a community of fellows within the IAS. There are going to be fellows here working across lots of different departments with lots of different people. But we'd like those fellows to be part of a community to work together and also to add value to the university, not just to one piece of work. So while they're here, they may collaborate with other people, you may build networks around them, you may have plans to introduce them to people in other departments whose work is relevant, or whatever it might be. You might be bringing them over both with a purpose to work with you on a project, but also a purpose to achieve something else on a wider university scale or with other departments, whatever it may be. I guess in essence, what we're asking here is, what is the value added to the university by bringing them over rather than the value added just to your project? And in line with that, we're asking how it fits with strategy and so on. So that might be the project they're coming over to do with you. Is that important for your department or your institute or wherever you may be based? Is it key to that strategy? Does it help them achieve something they're trying to achieve? It might be a high profile hyper, it might be a major grant, it might be a training need, it might be anything, but do they achieve something for the strategy? And you may also be able to link it to the university's wider strategies as well. And that then is the other component of the assessment, is how they fit across departments. So the interdisciplinarity really, not just should they be maybe an interdisciplinary scholar with you, but also that they have a chance to work across departments and ideally across faculties once they're here in Durham. So the only other things I should say are, we sometimes get asked, are people allowed to apply if they're not academics? And the answer is yes, there will be some occasions when you either have a practitioner or someone from a business or a partner, a non-academic partner, that you want to bring over for a period of time as well. And the answer is absolutely, we can support those, but we are expecting the same things of them, which is that we're expecting them to engage with you and to add value to the university. And we're expecting them to sit within a community of world-leading international scholars, which means that we do expect them to have a track record working perhaps with academics, working with different disciplines, and engaging and so on with universities like Durham. My advice would be, if you have a non-academic person you would like to nominate, that before you nominate them, that you talk to one of the co-directors or myself and just ask some questions. I'd always rather that you know whether they're suitable before you nominate them than you nominate them and then we disappoint them afterwards by saying it was the wrong fit or something and they've wasted their time, and it can sometimes damage a non-academic relationship. So if you've got any person you'd like to nominate who's not an academic, please just let us know ahead of time. That's all the key information I wanted to go through in terms of the application process. But just before I open to any questions, I just want to check whether Patrick and Nyanika have anything they'd like to add to what I've just said.
One small point, perhaps, Alex. I should ask first, can you hear me properly? Because my internet connection is a bit unstable, I'm afraid, today. Just to say that the case for support that you make is very important. It doesn't have to be very extensive or very long, but if you can explain, bearing in mind that the application is going to be read by people who are not specialists in your field necessarily, if you can actually explain why the person that you're nominating is an important figure in their field, the significance of their work, and the significance of the contribution that they're going to make to your project. If you could explain that as fully and concretely as possible, it is an enormous help to us in assessing the application, rather than having to try to glean information about the person's significance from simply their CV. Yeah. It does help if you can explain that in as helpful and concrete terms as you can.
Thank you, Alex, for really setting the fellowship details out. I also wanted to add, in terms of the kind of, I guess, the remit of interdisciplinarity, while the fellowships are linked to specific, maybe academic projects, also it's really important to ensure that, as Alex has spelled out, that there are relationships, there are links across other departments as well. So that interdisciplinarity element is really important. And I understand, say, within disciplines, there might be elements of interdisciplinarity. So within anthropology, we have, different branches of anthropology which are very different from each other, like my colleagues who do evolutionary anthropology to social anthropology. I think it would be really important to also, and that might be seen as interdisciplinarity within anthropology, but I think it would be helpful for the applications if there's a similar kind of subdisciplinary interdisciplinarity to also set out disciplinary links beyond the discipline itself, along with having those subdisciplinary links itself. I think it is important, or if you are not able to do it, just make a strong case as to why it is interdisciplinary in the way you're framing it, if it is only within the disciplinary framework only. So it would be just helpful. I just thought it would be helpful to set it out, the ideal case situation, but also make a case if it is not so, for us to understand the application better.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks both for picking up on those. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. We are, we are an interdisciplinary institute. We do want to make sure that we bring over people who add value, but also maybe bring different perspectives for your work. I think that's the critical component there. Okay, I think that's what we wanted to say in general, but at this point I'll open up to any questions from anyone about how to go about this. Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Yes. So I was wondering, is there any particular preference for particular topics every year, or is it just general over any topic?
So for the fellows that you nominate, it can be anything. So we have our major projects, but they already have fellows associated with them. So they can work on those projects, but they don't need to. This should be someone, if you're nominating, this should be someone who's coming here to help you build your research, a key interest of yours. So long as it's an academic project within Durham University, that's absolutely fine. We support all the faculties. We support any member of staff to do that work. Yeah.
So in some sense, an ideal candidate would probably be somebody who has a sabbatical available and is looking to possibly come and work with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all have our international collaborators, and I think this is an opportunity to take those people and bring them to Durham to work with you closely for a period of time. Or it may be a chance for you to bring someone you've always wanted to work with over here. And yes, it is often ideal if they have a period of sabbatical available. As I say, we don't want that to stop people who come from universities where that's not available to them. So if they're coming from an institute where that simply is not an option, then you can explain that on the form, and we will consider that as to whether we have the options to pay a small amount of teaching buyout and allow them to come over. We want the strongest academics to come here to fill spaces in some strong projects. So where a sabbatical isn't available, we still want them to come. It's just a matter of resources. So we will see what we can do in that situation. Does that help?
Yeah, sure, thanks.
Can I ask Alex, can one Durham staff like myself be the internal supporter or collaborator of two colleagues? One actually approached me, and he want to apply as the as an applicant, not internal nominate, and approached me to work with me, but he will apply as a self-application. Actually, I also want to nominate another colleague. So I'm not sure whether it will put my cases or my supporters in a sort of negative position because of involve two cases.
Yeah, no, you absolutely can be associated with two, particularly if one is nominated by you and one applies directly. I think there is often, how shall I phrase this? There's often more of an enthusiasm to support fellows who are nominated, because we know that you actively want that person to come here to Durham. Someone who's applying directly, if they're strong, we absolutely still want them to be here. Yeah, so we often would want to support the nominated candidates more, but that doesn't mean we won't support direct applicants. And if you have one of each, it absolutely doesn't influence anything. There may also be occasions when you have someone, a direct applicant, who wants to work with you that you don't want to work with, and also we always ask you in those occasions whether you want to work with them, and you have the right to say yes and you have the right to say no. So, you know, we will judge everyone on their strengths and on the support that they get from you.
Is there Is there any numbers, for example, how many numbers for external application directly and how many numbers for internal nomination?
No, as you can imagine, over the last few years, it's been fairly variable because of COVID. In some years, we can have 30 applications. In some years, we can have 100. My guess is that this may be a popular year because people are starting to think again about moving and traveling, but I honestly don't know. But there's no quotas for numbers coming in. We're just interested in strong applications.
And I just heard from you that you might have a sort of preference for internal nomination than external application. Is that right?
Well, we have a preference for the strongest candidates. If there were two equally strong candidates, we might choose the one that was nominated. But, you know, as I say, we will turn down some nominated candidates in favor of some direct applications, because some of the direct applications will be very strong. So it's just that we want strong support from the Durham academic that they work with. And that may be because you've nominated them, or it may be if they've applied directly. It may be someone that you didn't know before, and actually you write a very, very strong letter of support for their application as well, in which case that's absolutely fine. So we just want strong people who have strong connections or potential connections with Durham researchers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My very sincere apologies. I didn't know and just come back from meeting and saw it, so I joined straight away. Really sorry for being late.
No problem, Donji. All we've said is information that's primarily on the website. We've got a recording of this, Junji, so if you want to have a look at it, we can share that with you. But also, if you've got any questions about the process or anything, do just let me know.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions at this point from anyone?
Sorry, I have another quick question.
Yeah.
So if I go to the website, I see a number of different fellowships. There's the IAS fellowships, there's the college fellowships, there's the SeedCon, there's the Edison Wheeler fellowships, which I can see there. So
click on IAS Fellowships.
right. So yeah, so I get that.
And then at the bottom, you have how to apply for an IAS Fellowship, which is those people applying directly. And
Sure.
next to it, how to nominate a fellow. And that's the one that you would be looking for.
Sure. But what about the other ones? I mean, if we're not discussing this right now, but how does the Edison Wheeler Fellowship differ from? Except I see that it's a 3-year one, and
So
I don't find any topics there, yeah, kind of things.
The Addison Wheelers are different. They're postdoc fellowships. So these are for people early in their career to come to Durham for 3 years and carry out research. The IAS administers those. That call happens every 3 years. That call will be happening again. The call will probably open in a few months' time. So keep an eye out for those, and there'll be full details of the call at that point. But they're a very different scheme. They're not for distinguished researchers coming for a term. They are primarily for postdocs embedding themselves in a fellowship in Durham for 3 years to carry out a program of work, and we would hope establish themselves as a strong academic.
Great. And then these college fellowships, they are again run through all the different colleges, kind of things.
Yeah. Though that link just takes you to the colleges, which some of which have their own fellowship scheme and so on, and it's a resource for you to be able to find other ways of supporting colleagues that you might want to bring over to Durham. But the call that we have open right now is the IAS Distinguished Fellowship Scheme. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Anything else?
Oh, by the way, a very brief question. You just said we have to meet the sort of university strategy or department strategy. I just want to know, is that updated university strategy? Because what I can find from website is 2017 to 2027, right? So yeah.
That's it. But I mean, primarily, of course, there are key department initiatives that you may be trying to fulfill, and of course within the university strategy, which is in that document, 2017 to 2027 document, there are things around internationalization, high profile outputs and networks and so on, and globalization. So there's all sorts of things that you may speak to in that fit what the university is trying to do. You don't have to tick every box, you know. In some ways, we meet the internationalization agenda simply by bringing people over from international countries to here to work on a fellowship. There's already an addressing of that, but we're sort of more interested in whether your projects are fitting what the university wants to achieve in the broader sense.
Okay, just double confirm there's no updated one. Because I saw the 2017. So
well, I'll look to Junji, but that's the one I always use. There are various versions on the website as well.
And Alex, you're absolutely right. Yes, that is indeed a version, Bohan.
Yeah. So yeah, just use that. It has the key concepts in it.
Okay.
Great, Linda. Just if you're on the call, is there anything that I've missed?
No, I think you've covered everything really well, Alex, and just really for me to say, as well as colleagues contacting directors, I'm also available for any questions that colleagues may have in relation to either nomination or applicants. If you're approached by an applicant, for example, to act as host, for example, like yourself, Bingham, there where you've got the two.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that's been useful. My last thing to say, oh, sorry, Nainika.
Yes, hi, Alex. I just wanted to also raise a point that we might want to convey that I know we asked for the various kind of achievements, esteem of scholars, but at the same time, if we have and we are also wanting to also bring in scholars from the global south as much as where it's relevant for the projects. How do we balance out the kind of need for esteem, etc., along with the scholars from global south who might not have the esteem but their scholarship is solid. So people have different access to resources, and so how are we going to balance, or is there a way we could balance it out to encourage scholars from global south to be also fellows?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Nainika, and I think what I would do is just, I should maybe have said when I was talking about the scoring criteria. There is an FAQ on the website. It's a handy tool. If you have a look on that, you'll see what the criteria are and what percentages they are, and it maybe helps answer Nainika's question a little bit. So 40% of the score goes to international standing and contribution to the field appropriate to the stage of career. I would hope that for the very strongest academics, no matter where they are in the world, that should be roughly equivalent. We'd be looking to bring strong researchers wherever they're based. 30% of the score is for quality of the proposed research activities and relevance to IAS projects or other collaboration, i.e. with you. Again, that should be irrespective of where in the world they're coming from. 20% goes to contribution to the wider scholarly community at Durham and community of fellows. Again, that should be irrespective of their background. And only 10% goes to experience and track record in leading, participating directly in interdisciplinary research. Now, again, everyone may be able to speak to this. And I think the point I want to make is that actually a strong scholar without access to all the resources that are available to some of the richer universities should still be able to score highly, but that we as a team also are hugely aware. We're very keen to diversify the IAS Fellowship. So if you're at all worried about it, by all means, speak to us beforehand if you're nominating someone from a region where you think they haven't had certain opportunities. But we also have the opportunities and the options to promote someone without those opportunities, maybe above others if we think they're a particularly strong fellowship candidate. So, I mean, we're really keen to bring the very best researchers to Durham and not limit that by their availability for research leave or by the opportunities they've had available to them before now. We will find ways of working around those. We just want the very best people coming. So with that, I think the only thing I would say just before we sign off is I appreciate you're on the call because you have people in mind and it's a competitive process, so you don't want too much competition. But it's a great scheme. It's a great opportunity to bring people over to Durham. And I think it would be great if you could also spread the word amongst your own colleagues as an opportunity to bring their own collaborators over, work with them for a prolonged period of time in Durham and take advantage of the scheme. So thank you for coming along. If you've got any more questions, please do drop us a line, but appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.